Good morning. Good morning. I'm excited to be here. Hi, Logan. I am a set decorator in the movie business, and I'm also a Brentwood alumni. I went to school here from 1980 to 1985, and when I graduated, I was at the middle of my class. This is the top of the class, that's the bottom of the class. I was in the middle. An average student, but that's okay because by definition, a lot of us have to be average. And that doesn't mean I didn't work hard. In fact, I remember working very hard to get through Algebra 12. Not a fan of algebra. But I want to talk to you about my career and how, while I think that grades are important, they're not everything. It doesn't always affect you all the way through your life. Now, I'm going to go through quite a few slides, so hang on because I've only got 13 minutes to do this. But I think it started, my fascination with performance and theater and movies started with this. It's a puppet theater that I got when I was about 5 years old. Mine was a marionette stage, and I set it on the floor, and I played with marionettes, and I just loved the idea of on stage and off stage. Just loved marionettes. When I was about 10 years old, my mother took me to this location in Vancouver where they were filming the movie The Changeling. And I remember specifically being fascinated by the fake rock walls that they'd painted and the vines and how they were able to make it look so creepy. And when I was at Brentwood in grade 11, I assisted with the set design and construction of the sets for Hello Dolly. I think there's pictures of it in the lobby. While I was at UBC, finishing a degree in English literature, I was fascinated by this sort of thing, film production. And so as I was finishing school there, I started to meet other film students, worked on commercials, worked on music videos, and eventually conned my way on to a local independent production, Canadian production called Impolite. I was a production assistant. I was directing traffic and watching how it all went together. But by lunch of that first day, I joined the art department. They were my people. They were putting the sets together, and I just loved it. I never looked back. And for the next 25 years, I worked on lots of different movies, big blockbusters and horror movies, comedy, action. And I loved it all. It was all hard work. Mission Impossible was a particularly fun one. Along the way, I had the good fortune to work with this man. His name is Jim Erickson. He's now retired on Salt Spring Island, but he won an Oscar for the movie Lincoln. And he taught me a lot about making movies and details and doing research. And he specialized in period films. These are some of the films that he's worked on. And he called me one day and said, "Hamish, you better read this book. Somebody's going to give you a call." Has anybody seen this movie? It's restricted. You're not supposed to have seen this movie. Anyways, if you haven't seen the movie, it's a true story of a man named Hugh Glass in the 1820s in the upper Missouri area of the United States, and he was a fur trapper, attacked by a grizzly bear, left for dead by his compatriots, and before they left him, they robbed him. And he didn't die. He survived and went after these guys. It's a revenge story. So Jim said, read the book because this man is going to call you, this is where it was. This man is going to call you, Mr. Cool, Jack Fisk, an amazing production designer. So I should explain how it works in movies. You have a production designer who's in charge of the entire look of the movie. And then you've got the construction department that builds the sets, the painters that paint the sets, the art department that do the drawings so that you can get those things built, and set decoration, my department, which populates the sets with all the items that make it look real. For example, a police station, construction and paint would do the walls and the stairs, and I would put all the desks and things in there, wanted posters. So Jack said, let's work on this movie. I interviewed with him. He hired me. Let's work for this man, Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu, a very talented and demanding director. We're going to film this movie in Alberta over the course of a cold 8-month winter. It was very difficult on the crew. Also difficult on the cast. Here they are covered in leather and fur, acting like fur trappers going through the mountains. So we had to do our research. Now this is all pre-photography, so how are we going to find out what things were like then? We read journals, we consulted with museums, we looked at hundreds of paintings by 3 main painters of the day, Miller, Bodmer, and Caitlin. And we pored over those things for all the details, and we had to become experts in the fur trade. It was lots of fun getting back into that sort of stuff. So the script called for a flatboat. This is the type of thing that you would move the furs from the wilderness down to St. Louis. So how are we going to do this? Well, we look at paintings, we look at illustrations, Jack builds a model, art department draws it, and we build it, put it in the water, it starts to look like the real thing. My things on there are the bales of fur and the tarps and the ropes, the hardware. The secret about this boat actually had a 400 horsepower jet engine hidden inside of it, so we could go ripping around river, but it looked really good in the movie and legitimate for all the actors. Leonardo DiCaprio was our lead. So I am obsessed with details. Jim taught me that. So canvases and furs and leather, it had to look not only historically accurate, but it had to look like it'd been out in the wilderness and used by these guys in these harsh environments. So I would fixate on things like this, like mildew. It's really important to me because I never knew when a camera was going to be really close to an actor's face next to a tarp or something like that. The bags that the trappers carried all had individual nuances to them that was really important. So the director wanted me to convey the industry that these guys were in. This is pre-gold rush. The fur was the gold. So to do that, I had to create a butchering area where they would kill and skin the beavers. So I checked with producers and I checked with the government of Alberta. They weren't going to let me kill a couple hundred beavers, so I wouldn't do that anyways. So we used styrofoam, we used fake fur, we used latex and lots of tricks. We actually looked at real pictures of beavers getting gutted, and my talented crew started to put it together. And before you know it, we were able to create a scene so when the actors walked in, they really felt that they were trappers in this time. And I think it looked really good in the movie, kind of scary sometimes. So this guy, he's a Hudson's Bay photograph, and he's looking and grading furs, and you see what's on his lap there is a layer of beaver pelts heading down. They're very valuable to those trappers. One of those bales is worth a year's wages. And I needed a lot of them for the movie, and how am I going to do that? I can't get that many beaver pelts. I had to figure it out. I had to think about this with my guys. And we came up with a trick of layering canvas and tucking in furs and painting it, wrapping it with leather, and before you know it, it looks like the real thing, even though it's an inch thick. We move these things all over the place. Now, most movies, when I deliver a set, I deliver it to the director and I move on. But this one, Jack and I were stuck on set quite often, supporting the camera and making sure it was okay. So here I am arranging, I think, dead guys, and building a fish weir in a frozen river. And I also found myself in a river positioning a dead elk just so for the camera. Sometimes you just got to do it yourself. We filmed the bear attack sequence up in Squamish. It's fascinating. I don't know if you guys know how we did this, but it was CGI, blue suits, cables, and they were pulling Leo around for a couple days on these cables. And I remember standing there going, I'm really enjoying this. And then I remembered, I like marionettes. The world's most expensive marionette right there. And there's our guy taking a little break. All fake, don't worry. So one of the sets I had to do was the fort. And it's when the guys, after they got attacked, had to get back to the fort. So again, we looked at paintings and we studied. We pre-built the buildings on stage and took them out to the Spray Lakes area by Canmore and assembled them and let the painters have at them. And after a while, when the weather started to get to it, I brought in my items and it starts to look like a real place. Again, I referenced a Hudson's Bay photograph. This is a fur press, a piece of technology that existed in the late 1800s, but also 100 years earlier. They'd use it to cram those furs down into tight bales before they sent them off to St. Louis. So I looked at this photograph, I thought, oh, we just got to build one of these things. And based off the photograph, we built one on stage and had the painters paint it and brought it out to location and taught the actors how to use it, and it made great background action. We were all very pleased with the results of the fort as well. Now here's a little bit of obsessive detail. This is the fort, and you can see the teepees outside. No one ever told me that the camera would start on this flag, but I didn't have to worry about it because I'm sort of obsessive about this sort of thing. The 1822 flag is a 24-star flag, and I did my research, and so I had this flag custom built. It's made of wool, dyed to my specifications, and the entire thing is hand sewn. And specifically, every star on that flag is hand cut and hand sewn, and each one is oriented differently on its axis, not up and down. It's period correct for the time. So I knew that when the camera went up there, I didn't have to apologize. I could go ahead, guys, it's all gonna be good. You can film away. We had lots of teepees outside, lots of fun doing these, 30 of them, I think. Lots of detail. Again, I didn't know when the camera was going to get out there, so I had to be ready all the time. I love this picture because we've got a Steadicam, very modern piece of equipment, and behind the operators 200 years ago. These are our guys coming into the fort, and you can see how important my bales are. If you look at this photograph, they're even more important than Leo. I joke that this is, some people would call this a picture of Leonardo DiCaprio. I think it's a picture of a period-correct pot hanging on a hook. And Leo happens to be in the picture. Henry's house, this is the fur trade captain's house, an interior that I got to put a lot of detail into. Now, I never know where the camera's going to be, and a lot of this may not end up in the movie, but I know that the actors are going to go work in there. And I want when they go in there with the director, I want them to feel like they're really in that place. They don't get taken out of it. They feel that they're in 1822. So I went through a lot of effort. I actually found a calligrapher in Calgary who transposed some real letters from Henry to his bosses in New York, and I had them put on his desk so he felt like he was in the environment. And again, I do this so when the actor and the director sit down, they feel that the effort has been put in and they can just go forward. It's really fun to do things like that. Now, one of the sequences, a dream sequence, was this pile of buffalo skulls. And I checked with the producers and the government of Alberta, and they weren't going to let me kill a couple thousand buffalo, and I wouldn't do that. But I did get 10 skulls. And I made a mold. And then we figured out we could repeat this, and we'll put it on a frame, a two-sided pyramid, and we'll build that on stage, and then we'll take it out to location. And before you know it, we've created the illusion that we've got a pile of skulls there. And again, we were very happy with the results. We thought it worked. One of the crazy days when these two actors were supposed to be eating a raw buffalo meat, and it was really cold, and the fake blood just didn't look right when you were close to the camera, and I was trying to solve this problem. It's usually not my problem, but somebody had to solve it. So I looked at even strawberry Gelato to see if that would work, and I started obsessing about the appearance of blood in snow, and one night I was in a gelato shop, and I just found myself staring at this gelato going, well, that could work. I mean, that could be buffalo blood if I needed it to be. So you never know where your influences are going to come from. So we spent a lot of time in the woods hiding, watching them film, and then getting ready for the next scenes. Even some of my favorite sets we had to burn because the story required it. So remember I said I took stagecraft at Brentwood? Well, here's my report card. Signed by Mr. Bunch himself, after who this building is named. And it's some encouraging words. Let's look at that grade there. Yeah, average, pretty average. But in all my career and all my interviews, never once did they say, Hamish, you're the right guy for the job. You seem to have the energy. You're pretty good at this. It's that C+ we're a little worried about. Never came up, not once. And what I did find is that in life you get other types of report cards, promotions, job offers, a stack of resumes in your desk of people that want to work for you, and occasionally accolades. So when the Revenant started to garner a lot of accolades, we were all pretty excited for the work that we'd done because it was a lot of work to put the effort into it. So if I could ask the spirit of Gil Bunch to review my C+, I think maybe I could ask for a little more this time. Maybe we'll just have a little review of that score. And if you were to ask me what that score would be, the moment I stepped onto the red carpet at the Oscars in recognition for my work on the Oscars, I would say in stagecraft, probably getting an A at this point. I include this picture because I think Casey Neistat means something to you guys. 2 million views. And if you do get a chance to go to the Oscars, I recommend it. It is a lot of fun. You meet a lot of very interesting people. That's my wife, Jane, and I. So what I'd like to say is that while grades are important, what's really important is you find, hopefully, something passionate in your life, something that you can feel is worth your energies, and then the hard work comes naturally, and after that, so do the A's. Thanks very much.